Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you to the first time we've had a session such as this, which is going to talk about the board process, elections process, why you should run for the board, what we all can do to help encourage you to answer your questions, and to discuss a little bit of what the board does in the elections process. So this recording will be available at any time. And please rewatch it if you have questions, or please reach out to any of us on here, or any current board member, or Mrs. Groba, the AAM Executive Director, at any time. But we'd love to answer any further questions. So with that, I'd like to start with just a very brief synopsis of why AAM has a board and what the board does. So the board of directors is directly elected by all AAM full voting members. We're very proud of that. We're unfortunately one of the only emergency medicine organizations, or really one of the only medical organizations, that has direct election of the governing body by all members. That is something we've had since the beginning, and we're proud of, and that's not going to change. So the board is elected by the full voting members. There are currently 15 members of the board. That includes 5 officers and 10 at-large members. The board is the final decision maker of all AAM policy. I am the current president, but I do not have decision-making capacity in most instances, and I like it that way. That is the way that this organization is supposed to run. So we appreciate the way it's been structured, and we're going to continue that. But the board is only as good as who's on the board. So that involves, like I said, 5 officers, as well as 10 at-large board members, one of which is an RSA member. And all votes that we have are by either plurality, or some require supermajority, such as position statements and bylaws changes. To be an effective board member, you need to care about our mission. You need to believe in our mission. You need to have ideas on how to further our mission. Or if you're an AAM member and think our mission needs to change, well, then you can run too and help us change our mission if we're going in a slightly different direction than you think was originally planned, or in the direction we need to go. We get along fairly well, but that doesn't mean we don't disagree. I'm very proud that we disagree on many issues, and I think that is a sign of a very healthy board. This is not a board that rubber stamps the president's prerogative. And again, I think that's healthy for our organization. We have some very good debates. It shows that everybody really cares about this organization. So if you think that you care about the organization, if you would like to have your voice amplified, then it's time for you to run for the board. Things you would be asked to do on the board we'll cover in a second, but the main thing is, again, to care about our mission, to be respectful, to have some good business sense, to be able to change your mind if you're presented with a good argument that shows points of view that you've not considered. And that's pretty much what we take. The board should be a fun experience. It is a lot of work. We meet multiple times a year in person, multiple times over Zoom, but it's generally a good experience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bob Frolichstein to talk a little more about this process.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I'll agree with you. I've been on the board for, I don't know, 6 or 8 years now, and it is fun. I've really enjoyed the relationships that I've developed over the years. And I guess I'll just start with a little bit about my journey. Why am I on the board? Why am I president-elect? Well, really, it comes down to I was asked. I had a friendship with Mark Ryder, and he said, "Hey, why don't you be on the board?" And I thought a lot about it at that time. I thought, well, what qualifications do I have? Why should I be on the board? And really, it came down to that I was willing and I cared. And those really are my biggest qualifications. And I think, frankly, that's all you need, right? So anyway, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the way the board's structured and what kind of more of kind of the requirements of board members and that kind of thing. So there's 19 members on the board. And 5 of those are the officers of the board, and that includes a president, president-elect, secretary, treasurer, immediate past president, and then those are all elected positions, and then there's one appointed position, which is the past president's council representative, and that's the executive committee of the board, or the officers of the board. And then there are additionally some other at-large members. There's 9 elected directors that we call those at-large directors, and there's a 3-year term for those, and you can run and serve 2 consecutive terms as an at-large director. In addition, there is a YPS director, which is now a 2-year term, and the RSA president is also a voting member of the AAEM board. We have 3 ex officio members. That means that they are there because of another position they hold, and these are non-voting members of the board. They are present, and they really have all the same obligations that we're going to just talk about it here in a minute, but they just don't vote. And those positions are the editor of GEM, the editor of Common Sense, and the CEO of AAM Physician Group. And so that's the composition of the board. What do board members need to do? Well, probably the most basic and obvious one is they have to be AAM members, and they have to be active members that pay their dues. And so, this is not, we don't get paid to be on the board. This is an all volunteer board, and it actually costs us some money because we have to be AAM members. In addition, we have to, we made this decision several years ago that board members needed to support AAM through donations to the foundation. And currently that's a $1,500 donation. That may change at any time. That's up to the board. Then that's a yearly thing. But so those are kind of the some of the reasons, or sorry, some of the requirements to being on board. But more importantly, board members need to understand the mission, the bylaws, and the policies and the goals of the academy, and help shape those and help form those. What else? Well, you got to show up. You got to go to the board meetings. There are 4 or 5 in-person meetings per year. 2 of them are at Scientific Assembly. One right before the conference starts, and then one at the end of the Scientific Assembly. And there are several more throughout the year at various sites. And if it's a year that there's the Mediterranean Emergency Medicine Conference, then there will be a board meeting at that conference, wherever that is that year. So we are required to attend in person those meetings, with the exception of one per year. We can attend virtually through Zoom. We take this seriously, and even if you're attending to Zoom, via Zoom, we require you to have your camera on so we can be engaged with you when you're attending. There's things that happen in between board meetings, and we board members are required to respond to email communications or whatever form of communication we have at the time, and stay involved with our board duties. It's not just 5 meetings a year. There's other stuff to do throughout the year. All boards really have some obligations that are codified in, I don't know, I guess in law, or at least tradition. And those are the duties of diligence or care. And that means that you need to do your homework and understand the issues at hand, and make informed decisions that are in the best interest of the organization. There's a duty of loyalty, and that doesn't mean you have to only belong to AAM, but it means that AAM needs to be a primary interest in your life. And when you're conducting AAM business, that has to not conflict with any personal interests that you have, or any interest of any competing organization that you're in when doing AAM business. And then we have the duty of obedience, which really means we are obliged to follow the bylaws and the mission of the academy. Like I said, it's not just 5 meetings a year. Really, you're obliged to stay in touch with what's going on in our specialty, and there's various ways to do that. We all probably do that, but we really kind of have to know what's going on out there, so the academy can position itself on issues. You will have duties and meetings that you will attend as a board member outside of the board meetings. You will be assigned as a liaison to various committees or sections. Usually it's 2 or sometimes 3 different sections or committees that you are assigned to. And then you really have to understand that discussions at the board level are really meant for board members. And there are definitely things that are confidential that really shouldn't be shared without the board, outside of the boardroom. And in addition, that once the board comes to a decision, then every member of the board backs that decision. Doesn't matter if I didn't vote for it, right? We voted as a board, and so therefore the board endorses that decision, even if I personally don't agree with it. And then the last thing I have to say really is that I've enjoyed my time, and I kind of look at it as a good team. And if I have I'm a team sports guy. If I have a good team that plays well together and is successful, why would I not want other people to be on my team? So I feel like we have the obligation to really try to recruit others to be members of the academy and to be members of the board. So I don't think I have anything else to say, but I know that Dr. Laura Bontempo does. So I will turn it over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Bob. I get to tell you about things you need to know for the actual sort of nuts and bolts of the campaign and election process. First thing you need to know is you can nominate yourself. You don't need to have someone else nominate you. You can nominate someone else. Someone else can nominate you, of course, but you can nominate yourself. And most people who run for the board actually indeed are self-nominations. That's the first thing. Don't worry about it. If you want to run, you nominate yourself. You don't have to go find a friend to nominate you to run for the board. Once you are nominated, then you start obviously getting information from AAEM, sort of walking you through the process. Big things for you to know, and what I think is actually very important, perhaps before you even nominate yourself, is figure out why you want to run for the board, why you want to be part of the board. Because once you become a candidate, you put out a candidate statement, which is a written statement about essentially why you want to run for the board. And this year we made video statements, short video recordings. We were given 3 questions. So all the candidates had similar 3 questions to answer, but everyone put their own spin on it. And within those questions, again, you're going to want to convey why you should be on the board. What's your mission in being on the board? What is the purpose of you taking on this extra work? It's voluntary, as we were just told. So you're not in it for the money, that's for sure. You're in it for the cause. You're in it for some purpose, and you need to convey that purpose as to why you should be on the board. Once you make your video statement, then somewhere along that path, depending on when you make those statements, the voting opens. Now, yes, the voting finishes at scientific assembly, but the voting opens way before scientific assembly, actually 90 days before scientific assembly, and the voting is rolling. It's ongoing, culminating in the scientific assembly. During that period of time, you are allowed to campaign. There is a very brief set of do's and don'ts of campaign rules. You can go out and campaign. You can make campaign materials. You cannot hang a banner in the scientific assembly with your name saying, vote for me. That's not allowed. But you are allowed to reach out to individual members of AEM and recruit votes, promote yourself as a candidate. The candidate forum is live in person at Scientific Assembly, so you have to be at Scientific Assembly the year that you are running. I suppose it's not a law written that you have to, but it seems sort of like a good faith effort to be at Scientific Assembly the year that you're running to be a board member. Everyone is on stage. There are preset questions which you get asked as a group, answer individually. And then it opens up to the audience where audience members can ask questions either to an individual or to the group, and everyone gets a chance to answer. And again, at the beginning of that candidates forum, you get a brief time at the microphone to essentially say who you are, where you're from, and again, back to that why are you doing this? What do you want the voting members to know about you and why you should be on the board? Then voting closes, you pace around for 24 hours until you get a email the next day, one way or the other, telling you if you've won or not won. And then if you have, then there's sort of a whole flood of information that comes after that. And I have to say, you get that. You're going to read it. You're not going to digest it all between then and that afternoon when the first board meeting is, because the first board meeting is during that scientific assembly. But it's good to have those materials for reference. That's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. Again, there's a short list of do's and a short list of don'ts. You can get endorsed by groups within AAEM, but you have to campaign within the rules. Very, very generous. They're not sticklers on this, but it's sort of just good faith campaigning, no negative campaigning. Hopefully we're all professionals, that goes without saying, but no negative campaigning. Promote yourself, don't not promote anybody else. That's really it. And now I'm going to turn over. I just got elected to the board recently, and so did Dr. Best. So she's going to share her personal experience, which I imagine is somewhat similar to the same process that I went through. Heidi, it's all yours.
Thanks, Laura. So Laura and I became fast friends on an Uber ride from the first board meeting together that we shared back to the airport. So, you know, AAEM is such an amazing organization. And I think anybody watching this video obviously already knows that, and then would be so compelled to run for the board. And I think that we have just a great opportunity within this organization to do great things within emergency medicine, which is why I ran for the board. And I think that, you know, anyone who is a member of this organization and, as Jonathan said, kind of adheres to the mission and wants to further the mission, I think would be a great board candidate. So when I ran for the board, I did happen to know someone who was already on the board, but there's a lot to learn. And I think that it's nice to have someone that you know on the board to kind of reach out to, but you don't have to have that. I think Laura can attest to this as well. You're going to have other new faces there, and the board, generally speaking, is very welcoming. So I think that was something that I found to be great. We didn't come in first day having to know everything about everything. And I often prefaced some of my questions with "new kid here, get me up to speed about what happened last board meeting." And I think it's a very welcoming environment from that standpoint. I do think the candidate statement matters for a couple of reasons, not only to get elected by people who maybe do or don't know you, but it also will help the current board members to kind of understand who they might be working with the following year. So I would encourage everyone to really just kind of put some, you know, some thought into behind that statement that you put out there, because it'll help us get to know you better as well. Laura mentioned about endorsements. I think that also gives some name recognition. So there may be people who have never seen your name, never seen your face, but they may know Mark Ryder, they may know Jonathan Jones, and they may know Laura Bontempo. And so if you can get people to endorse you as a candidate, then they know, okay, I know what Laura stands for. I know she's great. And if she's endorsing this person, then I probably would too. So I would definitely encourage you to get endorsements from people within AAEM so that you have a better chance of winning. That's why you're running, right? You want to win. The last thing I'll say is kind of maybe what to expect on that first day on the on the candidate stage, and then on that first day of the board meeting. I would say if you have stage fright, don't worry about it. It's pretty pretty casual. Again, just saying who you are and why you're there. And I think if you always keep in mind what your mission is and why you're running for the board, then the answers come pretty easily. There's no trick questions there. It's really just stating how you feel and why you feel that way. And then you will get a slew of information that Laura and I did some quick digging through on our first days of the board meeting. And you'll attend that first board meeting at the end of the scientific assembly. And again, I think doing as much as you can to get up to speed, but really I'd say there's a welcoming environment knowing that it's your first board meeting. So don't be scared. It's super great. There's an amazing group of leaders within AAEM. So it's a piece of cake. So I think I'm passing it back to Dr. Jones. Take us away.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Best. Thank you also, Dr. Bontempo and Frolichstein. I think hopefully that was a good overview. And I want to make a quick apology. I said there were 15 members of the board. And as Bob corrected me, I was wrong. We actually just increased that one member this past year. This will be the first year that we will have 3 at-large members elected each and every year. So again, I apologize for that little misstep in the beginning. But we did make that change to get more involvement from the at-large members. So we did ask for some questions ahead of time, and we had 3 questions that were submitted to us. So I'll read the question, and maybe any or all of us can answer that question. But the first question that we had submitted was, I work for a CMG, and would I be considered for a board position? I'd like to start answering and say absolutely yes, and then let me turn it over to whoever wants to take that next to expand on that.
Absolutely, and I know we've had members that work for CMGs be on the board, even hold leadership positions within the board. So, absolutely, you know, we are the Academy does not believe that contract management groups offer the best career to emergency physicians, but it's not the fault of the emergency physicians, right? And if that's where you wind up, that's where you wind up. So. Absolutely should be involved.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of change from within. So come on over and make waves.
I'm a firm believer of hearing different perspectives. It's always good to hear from everybody. And when you're in that candidates forum, you say where you are and who you work for. There's nothing hidden about that. You put yourself out there and say, here's who I am, and here's where I want to run.
Absolutely. I think we all realize that a major reason that AAEM exists is to fight for the physicians that are forced to work for CMGs. Working for a CMG is bad in the sense that we wish you had a better place to work, but it's not bad because you're supporting a CMG. So absolutely, working for a CMG, we need people that work for CMGs. I will share myself. I have worked for a CMG in the past while I was on the board. I've been an employed physician by the state at a university. I've been an employed physician by a county. I've done locums. I've worked for an independent group. So you know what? I've done most all of those. But yeah, I've worked for a CMG, and I know several of our past and current board members do, and that is not a problem whatsoever. It's a problem that CMGs exist, but not that you happen to work for one. The second question we got is, why do you ask for the candidate's clinical EM practice? So I think by that we mean, or I think what that question means, when you submit your name that you want to run, as was mentioned previously, you're given some information that's requested of you, such as your involvement in AAEM. And one of the questions is where do you work and how many hours do you work clinically? To go back to the first question, that is not to, you know, try to pinpoint someone on where they work or anything, but we feel that we believe fully in transparency. And I think it's important to know when you're voting where and in what capacity the board members work. I think the second aspect of that is how much clinically they work. Many board members and many physicians have academic appointments or administrative appointments, and that's an excellent thing, and we want that. But again, we believe in transparency and feel that the members that are voting should know, you know, do you still work clinically? And if you do work clinically, how many hours do you work clinically? So I probably took too much of that, but let me turn it over to Bob, Laura, or Heidi for any other answers to that question.
I don't know if I have much to add. I think you did a great job answering it. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say personally, it's helped me to kind of understand the perspectives. Like my vote and my perspective from an independent group may be different from an academic perspective, or even for someone who's done locums. So I think even within the board, it helps me understand the perspective of the person and why they might choose to vote that way.
I have nothing to add to that. It's just the facts about who you are.
Great. The third question we got was, I hold a leadership position with another EM organization. Does AAM allow me to do both? Maybe can I turn it over to you, Bob, first, since you kind of hit on the board expectations and qualifications?
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know every rule of the academy, but I don't think there is any rules against doing against that. I think the key is you have to be able to separate the two, and when you're doing AEM business, your loyalty, your duty is loyalty to this organization. And if you can't separate those two, then you probably should not be running for the board. But if you're able to, and it's probably pretty easy to do, then you're absolutely, there's no disqualification from that.
Laura or Heidi?
I'm only on one board. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just to what Bob just said, just understanding where you may have internal conflict if you do hold more than one position. And I have to do this for myself too, is just making sure I have the right perspective in mind. I think if you always just do like a double check, then I don't see where there would be any conflict there.
Yeah, so I'll just finish up with that one. So there are no official rules, and we encourage our board members, just like all AAM members, to be involved in other organizations. I feel that AAM has a very important place, probably the most important place in emergency medicine. But I also freely admit that AAM does not address every single need of our members. We expect our members to belong to other organizations. Maybe that's a state medical society, county medical society. Maybe that's one of the other national medical societies that has a slightly different focus than AAM. That none of that is frowned upon. In fact, that is all great. I think if more physicians were involved in more organized medicine, we would be better off. As far as running for the board, absolutely, it's not a problem. I mean, a specific example, I know at least one current board member is also a current ACEP counselor. That is not a conflict of interest for us, as like was said, as long as you realize that you do have a responsibility, an ethical responsibility to the AAM board to support AAM. You also have an ethical responsibility to your other organization, whatever that may be, not to share that organization's innermost workings with us. I don't want an inside agent on our board from another organization. As useful as that might be, that's not appropriate, and it's not ethical, and that's not how we operate. So as long as, and then likewise, not being that agent, for AAM. But as far as being involved with other organizations, not a problem at all. If anything, I think it can help strengthen our organization as well as the others. So no worries at all about that. One of our past board members several years ago was a former president of ACEP. There was some talk at the time, oh my goodness, what is this person doing? That the person was a phenomenal board member. They didn't share any of ACEP's deep, dark secrets. They supported AAM because that was what he thought was appropriate at the time, and it was fine. So there's no worries about any of that. We fully support you belonging to any organization and continuing to run for the AAM board as long as you're running for the right reasons. All right. Well, those were the only.
I see another question came up, Jonathan.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll take this one to start with anyway. The question is, how have you been personally rewarded by being a member of the board? And I already spoiled my joke answer would be the pay is great. That's not the answer. But I think it's let me just say in general, I think different people will get different rewards out of being a board member. I'm kind of one of those relationship people. That's what kind of drives me. And I've made incredible friends and relationships on this board. And it is just encouraging to be surrounded by people that care about our specialty and are trying to positively impact that through the work of the academy. Other people are driven by different things, right? Some people like to do, they're doers and they like a checklist of things to do. And there's definitely rewards for those kind of people on the board as well.
I've learned a lot. I've had a tremendous education over the past 6 months. I knew about, I thought I knew a lot about AAEM, and now I know a lot more about AAEM. And there's so much going on within AAEM that I think as a member, you're involved in the parts that are important to you, but you can't see the whole picture. I'm not certain that I'm still seeing the whole picture, because there's just so many moving parts and so many good initiatives going on. I've learned a tremendous amount. I've made some new friends, and that's really lovely. And I like feeling that I can make a difference on the board level. We all go to work to make a difference on the individual patient level. I feel this way can make a difference at a higher level.
I think for me, I agree with both what Bob and Laura said. It's wanting to make a difference was the biggest thing, and it's not truly all altruistic. I mean, I get something out of it. I feel good at the end of the day. It's work. It takes a lot of time being on the board, and then especially being the president takes a tremendous amount of time. And sure, there's some days where I say, "Oh, it'd be nice if I just had to go to work and take care of my patients." But at the end of the day, the things that really make me feel that I'm doing something in this world, in this country for emergency medicine are related to AAM. So it's busy, but it makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like I'm putting my resources to good use. I hope I am. But then to add to what Bob said, it's a tremendous way to meet other people. And I've made so many great friends through AAM and through my involvement with the board. And there's just no way that I would have become such close friends without that. So there's that personal impact. And then I want to share also, there's the personal impact of making friends outside of AAM. Once you're on the AAM board, and then again, especially as president, I have to say, I've had meetings with the presidents of all the other EM organizations, some of which, quite honestly, I probably wouldn't have really met, or at least had in-depth discussions. And it's nice. It's good to meet people and to see that, we're all just genuine EM docs trying to do the right thing. And it's being on the AAM board, it might sound counterintuitive, but it helps you make friends outside of AAM. And that's also, I think, a tremendous benefit.
Man, there's nothing left to say. You guys took it all, but yeah, and I would say I'm kind of in between Bob and Laura, where it's both the people, but also just there's infinite amount of knowledge that you can gain, and there seems to be like we're just scratching the surface of it. So hats off to the president and president-elect for trying to keep all that straight in your brains, but it's really just been a rewarding experience. And just, again, to meet the other people that, I mean, there's so many intelligent, hardworking people in emergency medicine, and to find those also with you on the board in AAEM has been really rewarding.
All right. Other questions? All right. I think that's about it that we have right now. If there's any closing statements from Heidi, Laura, or Bob?
Just
I would
please,
say I don't, as a new board member, I guess my best endorsement is I'm happy I did this. Yes, there's a lot of work. Yes, the campaign was work. I'm 6 months in. I have no regrets about the decision to run or be a member of the board.
Same.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think I would encourage you to get involved, run for the board. And you know what? If you don't get elected, then run again the next year. Okay. Because that happened. We have more qualified people than our positions open. So don't give up and don't like try to game the system and say, oh, I'll wait till next year. Just run for the board.
Well, I will say I'm happy to hear from both Laura and Heidi, two of our newest board members, that they're happy they did it. They've been tremendous assets to our board, and agree with what Bob said. That if you have any desire whatsoever, throw your name in the ring, or at a minimum, reach out to one of us or staff or any board member. You have time to submit your nomination. You can submit it, ask questions, ask for advice. Run for the board. We need some good people. And if, quite honestly, if you're listening to this now, I think you're a good person and you're interested enough and you care enough about the academy that you've already answered whether or not you should. Let us help you, and let us help you advance the academy to the full extent and reach its full potential. So that's all we have. Please reach out to any of us. Our contact information will all be provided. And thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.